Today, we will talk about the United Nations mission in Ethiopia and Eritrea, or we know as UNMEE.
Before we explain the details of UNMEE, let me take you back to why this mission even existed. Between 1998 and 2000, Ethiopia and Eritrea fought a devastating border war, mainly over a small town called Badme. But the cost was huge. More than 70,000 lives lost, hundreds of thousands displaced, and both economies severely damaged. The international community could not ignore this crisis. After the Algiers peace agreement in December 2000, the United Nations stepped in to ensure the fighting did not start again. This led to the creation of UNMEE, the United Nations mission, in Ethiopia and Eritrea. UNMEE was officially established in July 2000. At its peak, the mission deployed about 4,200 personnel, including troops, observers, and police from dozens of contributing countries. The headquarters were located in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and Asmara, Eritrea. In short, UNMEE's presence was meant to provide stability. After one of the bloodiest border wars in Africa at the time, it created a buffer zone called the Temporary Security Zone, giving both countries space to avoid direct clashes, while diplomatic solutions were pursued. So in this overview, what we should remember is that UNMEE was not just a peacekeeping force, but also a symbol of hope for communities who had already suffered years of war.
I'm going to explain about UNMEE's mandate and stakeholders, which are mandate of UNMEE was clear but challenging.
First, it was tasked to monitor the ceasefire and ensure that both Ethiopia and Eritrea respected the peace deal. Second, it had to support the Eritrea-Ethiopia Boundary Commission, EEBC, which was responsible for demarcating the border. UNMEE also coordinated humanitarian support and assisted displaced civilians in the conflict area. The main stakeholders involved were the UN Security Council, who gave the legal authority, the governments of Ethiopia and Eritrea, the EEBC, which determined the legal border, and of course, the local populations affected by war. However, cooperation between stakeholders, especially Eritrea and the UN, it became difficult, which led to major obstacles in the mission's effectiveness.
Okay, so in UNMEE mission, the United Nations mission in Ethiopia and Eritrea, one of the main challenges was the issue of security and politics.
First, Eritrea restricted the movement of UNMEE forces. This meant that peacekeepers could not move freely to monitor the security zone. As a result, the UN mandate became very limited. Second, Eritrea banned the use of helicopters and restricted fuel supplies. Imagine peacekeepers who needed to act quickly, but were unable to use air transport. Even their ground vehicles were affected due to fuel shortages. Third, after tensions between Ethiopia and Eritrea flared up again, the security risks against peacekeepers increased. They became exposed to threats of attacks and political interference.
Finally, in 2008, Eritrea decided to expel the UNMEE forces. This marked the failure of the mission, showing just how difficult it is to maintain peace when political and security issues cannot be controlled. UNMEE also struggles with logistical and cultural.
The border region was mountainous, remote, and lacked infrastructure. Moving troops, supplies, and medical aid was very difficult. Some areas were only accessible by air or long road journeys. Additionally, there were language and cultural gaps between the international peacekeepers and local communities. Misunderstandings and lack of trust made communication harder. Also, the mission depended heavily on host nation support, especially from Eritrea. But that support was unreliable and later withdrawn. These challenges slowed down the mission's ability to respond quickly and effectively.
And today I'm going to speak about on some important lessons we can learn from the mission of Eritrea and Ethiopia, which is also known as UNMEE. Also, I'm going to speak about the important future applications that can be used for the future missions.
First, peace missions only work when the countries involved give strong support. Without cooperation, the mission cannot succeed. Second, it's not enough to just monitor peace. Missions also need to address the real political problems in this case. Third, peacekeepers must have freedom of movement and access to their bases. Restrictions make it hard to do their job effectively. Fourth, flexibility is very important. Missions should be able to adapt when situations change on the ground. Finally, peacekeeping should always be linked to solving the bigger issues. That meant finding a long-term solution to the Ethiopia-Eritrea border conflict. Future peacekeeping missions in similar interstate conflicts should include robust political engagement roles and be closely linked to diplomatic peace processes to ensure holistic conflict resolution. Stakeholder consent management. Continuous assessment and management of the parties' political consent are crucial. Comprehensive peace framework integration. Peacekeeping missions should align operational mandates tightly with political agreements and border demarcation processes to prevent mission sidelining.
So these are some of the topics we have covered in our topic, which is for Ethiopia and Eritrea, which is also known as UNMEE.